let me say a special good morning to those of you listening to Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9. Good Wednesday morning. It's the 3rd day of January 2024. Let me say good morning also to the viewers. GBN TV, Channel 7, Channel 11, or those of you who are viewing Channels 20. Good morning to you. Thanks for being with us this morning. Let me say good morning also to my social media audience. Those of you via the Facebook page, YouTube channels, those of you via GBN's webpage. Good morning to you. And thanks for being with us this morning. Let me welcome, I think it's the first time I'm ever having a conversation, of course, with the Honourable Minister, Mr. David Andrew. Good morning to you, sir, and welcome to this edition of To The Point. Nice to have you. Happy New Year to you also.
Thank you, JT. Good morning. It's good to be on the program. Let me wish you all the very best for 2024, for this new year, and all our listeners too. I want to wish them a healthy, prosperous, successful 2024, and may everything they put their hand to,
yes,
anything they attempt to do that's positive, may they realize good fruit, good reward, good benefit, and success in 2024.
Certainly, that's the encouraging words there. You know, there are folks who need that bit of encouragement as they move along. Well, let me say welcome, sir. Nice to have you. You being Minister of Education, and education is going to be a dominant factor in our conversation this morning. We're going to talk about the overall education in Grenada from where you picked up as minister, of course, after elections. Well, let's talk about achievements of the ministry from 2023. Tell us about some of the achievements you would say the Ministry of Education may have achieved in 2023 to just get the ball rolling.
Right. Well, thank you. Let me put on record that the education sector is a very important and strategic sector in the government's transformation agenda. In fact, we believe that our country could best be transformed through education.
Yes.
I mean, probably all other sectors might argue likewise, health and agriculture and all the other sectors. But to raise lawyers, it takes education. To raise good doctors, it takes education. To raise good technical experts, it takes education. And to raise civic-minded persons who can contribute and be real good citizens, it takes education. So all of the things that we really want to achieve in some way or other, it depends on education to have it done. And I think this administration understands that. And so it's for that reason education has been prioritized as one of the two most significant things next to healthcare, in fact second to healthcare, that becomes government's priorities. And that has been reflected over the last couple of years in the budgetary allocations for education, and indeed the kind of emphasis and priorities that we've put to education. So a number of key things we've continued to work to ensure that we increase education financing and access,
yes,
and the quality of education, and improve civic-mindedness. So a couple of key things that you asked for achievements, and probably there are very many, but yes, I'll probably try to single out a few of the major ones.
Well, that's directly where my question led to, the major achievements.
Yeah. We're talking about the reintroduction of universal secondary education. That for me is a huge thing, and persons might, there have been arguments, but I've been in the education system for all my adult life, and people pick up at different times, and with the right degree of support, every student can succeed. Every child has potential that if we give the right degree of support, each child could realize great potential and be a good contributing citizen. And so the universal secondary education, where we give every child who gets to the age of 11 plus and attempts the CPEA, moves on to secondary school, and mind you, with support. So we have a program since the introduction of the universal secondary education. We've had a program called Pathways to Success,
yes,
which is particularly tailored to support the students who were at the bottom end, who the 70 or so students who didn't make it, like in the case of this year gone, and who didn't have the grade. But the support, the psychosocial support, the extra literacy and numeracy support, all of these things are put in place, and it continues,
yes,
even after. And so 2 years in, we can or into the second year, we can report that that's going well. And the kind of support we've gotten from volunteers and the feedback we've been getting is quite rewarding. And we believe that everybody needs to get that access without the stigma of you didn't pass, you don't, this my son brighter than you, this one, that kind of stuff.
But there's another, there was a little bit taken back with it in terms of the format that was used. Folks were saying, as you mentioned, who didn't pass and who didn't pass and so forth. There are folks who thought that children who maybe were not ready should not have gone beyond. What was your take on that feeling from individuals who felt that way?
Well, the truth is, there are several contributing factors to this readiness that we talk about.
Everybody's at a different stage, right?
Right.
More or less.
Right. And we have to determine what support we give. Now, if we keep them back and don't give them the support, it's probably equally bad. And from my experience, it's been largely that more than anything else. In some cases, we've grouped them all in one place and say, okay, you're all special children.
Yes.
You try to avoid the pejorative terms. But in the end, they're treated as those kind of students.
I understand.
And then the outcome is not positive. So you really have to look in a practical sense at the efficiency of keeping them back. And it hasn't worked well over the years. And so bringing them forward with a view to supporting them and having supported them, and that's why I pointed out that the Pathways to Success program that goes along with it has yielded great success.
Most folks were looking at it as just passing them through the system.
No.
That's not the case at all.
No, it isn't. It isn't. So there's ongoing support for them. There's a twice hourly per week support session that goes for them, and that continues. All right. With teachers, some retired education officials, even policemen and community volunteers get involved in that.
Right.
That help.
Interesting to know that. I just wanted to get that cleared up because sometimes we don't hear it from the ministers themselves, how the program is feeling, how people feel about it. I know you gave that level of explanation. I hope that we get a better result from it this time around.
Certainly. Right. So there's a universal secondary education, which I'm happy about. Then we can talk about the removal of the fees at the primary secondary levels.
Yeah.
Now, there are people who struggle to pay the $25 a term, and if that person had 4 children, it's a little struggle, and you do find those people. So that we removed, and sometimes people lose sight of those things because it becomes normal. After 2-3 years, sometimes people lose sight of it. But for me, that's something that increases the access to education. Because we don't believe that anything must debar a child, not poverty, not economic status, should debar a child from access to education. And so we removed those fees, and not only did we remove them, so parents no longer had to find those monies, but to the extent that we removed the fees, we subsidize the schools, so the schools are not in a worse off place. So they got the fees, the lab fee, the games fee, the security fee, whatever. The government is providing the extent of those fees to them, which increases access. But not only that, for the preschools, and that's a level of education that we put a lot of emphasis on, because we believe if we capture and we get the right degree of competencies at that level, a lot of the things we grapple with down the road about passing exams and failing, a lot of those things become easier because we nip it in the bud.
At that early stage.
So for the first time in the history of education, unattached preschools receive a subvention from government. Now, all primary and secondary schools have been accustomed to receiving that over the years. But for the first time under this administration, all unattached preschools receive a subvention from government towards their operation. Now, when you say unattached, we mean the preschools that are not attached to a St. Michael's RC or a St. Matthew's RC or some other school. They stand alone.
Right.
And so
more like of a private nature also?
Well,
not all of them.
No, the government ones.
Government run ones.
We have a responsibility for the government ones. We haven't gone to the state where we can support to that extent the private ones yet. In some ways we do, but not to this degree of financing yet. So we've done that, and we believe we continue to put a strong emphasis on the early childhood education programs and structures and systems, and you'll hear more about that too, even as we address the reading and literacy challenges at that level. Our experts are still working in that vein to do and develop the blueprints that will guide exactly what happens. There are standards, and so all of these things are successes. And then we can talk about the free tuition
Yes.
policy. For me, that's a huge one, because post-secondary education is key. The statistics will tell us that quite a large percentage of persons do not successfully transition into post-secondary education. And the removal of those fees, the $810 to do the 2-year program at TAMCC, or the similar type programs, the similar type fees at NULO, increases the access of our post-secondary students and young people to that level of education. See, because we believe one of the challenges I have observed, we have a lot of young people who leave school and they're not properly skilled. And they turn out 16, 17, they want work, they want something to do.
Conduct on a bus.
Right. And then we have backlogs of that. But one of the real problems that we have not addressed systemically is how skilled have we made them.
Yeah.
And the system wasn't well prepared to do that because the access at that level was lower.
Right.
And I'm happy to report, in the instance of NULO, let's say for instance, the previous year, NULO had a total enrollment, and they have 2 enrollment periods, but for the entire period, both enrollments, they had about 304 total registrants to their program. Because of the introduction of this, at the first enrollment they had in October gone, they already have about 300. They're one shy of the total they had 1 year before.
If I could chime in here and you with the free tuition, I understand the free tuition will be removed, but there's conversations out there where folks said government may, or even the previous administration, were doing more of that particular nature in terms of, yes, transportation is also needed. A parent may not be able to pay the fee for the tuition, but they also may need the assistance for transportation. There's also the need for food and so forth. Has your administration considered that? Been added to those?
I want to say there's absolutely no truth to that statement, that suggestion. Simply because all of the programs that existed before, as far as we know, from a government point of view, now I'm not talking about things that happened in a party office.
Okay.
Because as far as I know, there are a lot of things that happened in party offices and constituency type things that you can't trace from a government point of view, from an institutional point of view. Right? But I'm talking about programs that we have from an institutional point of view, that whether governments change or not, they're there. Okay. And there's a track record for it. There are details, there are records of it. Now, so the SEED program, all of the support programs still exist where these kinds of support for educational development exist.
All right.
There's still the tuition assistance that persons get and apply for. That hasn't changed. So all of those programs continue. And now they've moved from constituency offices into Ministry of Education in some cases, or to the relevant ministry. SEED in social development, tuition assistance in education, but they exist. And persons continue to get that kind of support. And the persons on the SEED program, they get transportation.
All right. I just wanted to get some clarification on that, and I'm happy that you clarified.
So it's there. So nothing has been removed. What I know for sure is that the tuition fee that they had to pay before,
they don't have to pay.
They don't have to pay that anymore. So that is an obvious plus from an institutional point of view, and we are happy to have made that possible. And we are confident that a lot more young persons are embracing the opportunity. I've met persons who probably left school 3-4 years, and they say, "Well, listen, I'm going back now, because they now have the access." Right. And we are just going to keep promoting that to ensure that more of our young people have the opportunity to get skilled up.
All right.
Part of that plan too is we have the skills strategy, because we understand too, I think, and that's one of our achievements, we understand the importance of skills in our educational landscape. And we found that based on the labor force surveys and the work permit review, you see that there are quite a lot of applications for persons to be employed, to get work permits, to do things in the areas of skills. And sometimes you ask yourself, well, these are things that Canadians could do.
Yes.
These are things that, and when you check with the employers, there are several contributing factors. Sometimes they say the skills are not present, the attitudes are not there, the work readiness, they don't want to. So several challenges there. So we have launched a skills strategy and a skills policy which sets out to bridge the gap between the products that we set out in the education system and what is required for the world of work. Right? Now, in societies that have advanced, in some of the first world societies, they have ensured that the education system contributes directly to the skills needs and what's required for the development in their societies. And that keeps them going. Now, I think we've missed, in some regard, that. And so there's a deliberate attempt to connect those two through the skills policy and the skills mapping. Part of that we have already done. We have expanded the TVET offering in primary schools. So all of the primary schools are now exposed to TVET. Now, it used to be there before, but not all schools used to be exposed to it. Now, that's the difference, right? So only a small number of schools used to be exposed. I think the thinking wasn't as deliberate. So only a small select number of schools, but we have reconfigured and made sure that through having different primary school centers, all schools are able to get exposed. So the grade 6s, for instance, in Woburn Methodist, you have a number of neighboring schools, whether it's Grand and Sarasi, Sacred Heart I think it's called, or Springs, or whichever. They all come there, the grades 4, 5, 6, on selected days per week to get exposed. Now, and that is basically sensitization. At that level, we are not intent on creating the kind of skills that the workforce requires. That's not the intent. But it's to create an openness that everybody needs to get touched with it. There's nothing like skills are for non-academically inclined.
All right.
Or done, if you can't make it, well, do something with your hands. Everybody gets exposed. So we are hoping with that degree of sensitization at that level, you would have a lot more uptake for skills, and persons would realize that skills exist on a spectrum. You have the bare skills, but you have the engineering side, which requires just as much math and physics as anything, as aeronautic space engineering maybe, or one of the other highly scienced areas that you might think about. And so we want our students to understand, and our population too, our parents, teachers and educators, that the skills thing is not just about who can't make it. It's for everybody. And so even at that level, we've expanded the offerings, and there's a further plan to further expand it to the primary level so that you have more access. Now, what's happening now is that you have about 5 or 6 schools going to one center in different areas, whether it's River Sally or it's St. John's. But when we further expand, we want to reduce the number of schools that have to go to one center so they can be more deeply exposed, and more grades could be exposed to it.
Right.
So there are about 10 or so other schools down for retrofitting to further broaden that expansion.
All right.
So we're happy about that. And then the last thing I'd say there is part of that skill strategy would see us develop centers of excellence, and that's on the card, to have various skills developed in various areas. So there might be ICT. The strategy speaks about 10 different areas that we are going to focus, not all at once. There's a phased way to improve it and to implement it, and we hope to implement a few, probably about 2 or 3 this coming year.
Okay.
Some might be in schools, some might be in centers, some might be in facilities that already exist that we can upgrade. So we're excited about that, and the policy to legislate compulsory education to the age of 18 fits into that, because we found that several of our students leave school at 16, 17, and have to compound that problem too. They're not properly skilled. They couldn't have the access to go to TAMCC financially or whatever it was, or NULO. So they draw back and wait for employment. And then so we have to be helter-skelter all around creating programs, whether you call it Imani or you call it this or you call it that. But you'd have these makeshift, I would call them, programs that if they continue to exist in their continued format over years, it defeats the purpose and doesn't do exactly what you want it to do. You understand? And that's where I'm challenged with programs like that, because they become something of permanence when in fact they should be something that you train in.
And then you expand to something
right.
else.
And that hasn't happened. And we have chosen to address the systemic and some of the more root causes for the need for those programs. So I listen to some people batter and banter over numbers and stuff in some of the houses. and the reason is that we are choosing to institutionalize better training and the access and the opportunity for skills, so that when you have less need for that, and then when you do it, it serves the purpose that it was rightly intended, an apprenticeship type program that skills you and readies you for access and entry into the world of work in some particular area.
Oh, yeah.
So all of these things we're doing, and I'm pretty happy and excited about.
All right, happy to know that. We due for a break, but still, let's take it. When we come back, of course, we discuss some more. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio GBN TV. Right back after the break.
Celebrate Christmas and New Year with the NLA's exciting You Must Win promotion. Spend $15 or more in a single ticket purchase on Daily Pick 3, Daily Cash 4, or Playway, and just like that, you have chances to win prizes valued at over $100,000. Winning is easy. Simply check your tickets for the words "You won," free cash, free phones, free tablets, or free Instacash tickets. But wait, that's not all. You can also win free raffle entries for chances to win not one but 2 cars in NLA's You Must Win promotion. Promotion runs December 1st, 2023 to January 31st, 2024. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 and over to participate. The NLA, making your Christmas and New Year dreams come true.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio GBN TV. With me this morning, Senator Honorable, of course, David Andrew to be this morning. Welcome back, ministers. Let's continue with our conversation this morning. Let's talk about some of the major projects for your ministry for 2024 and beyond.
Right. So thank you. The budget makes allowance for a number of interesting things to happen. And probably I want to start with a couple of those that we rarely see. So, departments like the Special Education Needs Department.
Yes.
We have upgraded that department. Now, formerly there were about 2-3 officers, and they had to service everything, and we didn't even have the service of one of the officers for the better part of last year because she was seconded to some other department.
Okay.
But we have since expanded our department to make it a proper department. We've gotten a head of the Deputy Chief Education Officer for special needs, and we've gotten about 3 or 4 other officers so that we can offer a broader spectrum of services to our special needs students or special education needs students. I'm thrilled about that, and the budget allows for that. So I am looking confidently forward to stronger offerings for that population, and I think that's something we can look forward to. Even in the area of student support, we've gone through a period where people talk a lot about student behaviors in schools and the need for support and all of that, and I think one of the challenges we have had over the years is the inability to get the support. For instance, we had, within the last couple of years, we had only 1-2 school feeding officers serving the whole nation.
Yeah.
And that's been a problem because the degree of efficiency with which you can service the 100 and something schools in the program
Two
part of the question.
is
Absolutely.
2% can't do
So
that at all.
we are getting more officers in that department. Even school attendants, a couple of those officers came in only this week. So we are upgrading staff and staffing to be able to better deliver on those services to students. I anticipate we've moved. We only had one since I served in that capacity some years ago, but we've only had for the longest while one school counseling supervisor who operated at a more trained level and was able to give better clinical supervision to persons who did the counseling in schools. We've since appointed 5 of these persons and making the necessary changes to have those lower places filled.
Okay.
So that within this month, we are going to have a definite ramping up of the services being offered to students to address academic concerns, to address career guidance and personal social issues, and that's part of the guidance curriculum that persons follow in education. So there are these areas that are being treated with. There is also the Healthy Start nutrition program, which we did a lot of work on in the last year, and you probably would hear some official launch of it. No, we didn't make any big noise about it because it's more or less a rebranding of the school feeding program.
Okay.
But it attempts to focus more than just feeding and to focus nutrition. And healthy start. So it talks about lifestyle. It talks about incorporating physical activity. And to this end, we've had a collaboration with the Department of Sports, where about 31 coaches were deployed into schools to assist with physical activity in school. Because admittedly, over the last few years, well, probably over 5 years now, we've had a study done by the Food and Nutrition Council that pointed out that there was an increasing level of childhood obesity in schools. I mean, sadly, this is something we have to address. And so the Healthy Start Nutrition Program, which we obviously will launch and talk a lot more, seeks to collaborate with other stakeholders like agriculture, farmers and persons in agriculture to get local produce into schools, to use them, along with the physical activity, collaborating with sports and all of that, to make sure that we promote healthier living and lifestyles among our students. And I think that comes well at the point when, in the last budget, the Minister of Finance announced that the $1 and $3 whatever was charged for feeding, for the school feeding program, that's removed.
Okay.
And it might seem simple, maybe $1 or $3, but I think one person was telling me she knows of somebody who has 4 children in school, and think of trying to find 4 trees $12 if that person's go to secondary school, to find $12 a day. And granted, there's not been a case, I don't believe, where students, if they badly needed, couldn't go to the school.
And would get the food still. I don't think they would be turned down.
But I tell you, I know students whose pride still didn't allow them to go and say, "Miss,
I don't have anything today.
I don't have the money today." They will refuse to go. And so when you take away these kind of barriers, it increases the access again, and the ease and the things that facilitate their learning experience in school. And then we can talk about the school maintenance. That's been a challenge over the years, but we are putting structures in place to have preventative maintenance undertaken.
Okay.
Because we don't want to wait to have a system where everything comes almost to the point of collapsing and breaking down, like it has been, like with the complex. I mean, all the air conditioning is gone and lots of stuff, because I believe there has not been that kind of systematic, structured preventative maintenance routine that prevents us from getting there. So we want to make sure, so we are in engagement with technical experts, and we probably just hasn't signed the line yet to put a grouping responsible for preventative maintenance. Right. And we know that there are going to be the big overhauls that we'd have to do, and we'd have to link with infrastructure and the engineering departments there to get that done. But I'm happy that we are in that space where it's almost finalized. So we wouldn't have the kind of recurring nagging, needling problems, pipe bust there and leaking for months and these kind of things happening. So that's a really good plus, and I want to commend my team at the ministry for the work being done there.
All right.
We also have a number of schools that's done for repair and reconstruction in some cases. So if you followed close to the end of last year, we did sign a contract with Sunrise Construction for the construction of the Grenada Christian Academy.
Okay.
That was a school that was long in waiting, but when we got it, there were quite a number of things to do, regularizing the person who was on the land and finding alternative spaces for them and doing the surveys required, because CDB will not offer no objection until all of those things are satisfied. So we had to offer the payments and compensate him even for the crops he had on the lands. So we were able to do all of those things, and we finally signed the contract, and we anticipate that in short order construction will begin. Also of importance is the Grenville Anglican School, and a school that has gone through much within the last few years actually, because since before they moved to Progress Park, they were the recipients of a lot of battering, even at their site in Grenville. Something we wish to implore on our citizens to not do, because these are our nation's children, these are our assets, and we can't
really set them back.
Yes, absolutely, and so we don't want that. But even so, that school, the tendering, because we've had the design, we've had the consultations, the school is happy, the church management is happy, the parents are happy, the students are even happy, because all of them had input in the consultations, and that has been tendered, and I think the tendering was closed, or should be closed. Today is should be closed on the 4th.
The 4th. So I guess they still have today being the 3rd.
So they have probably one day. So and then they'll be assessing and analyzing, and one of the contractors will be selected and awarded the contract, and we anticipate that construction too will begin in the coming year. So I'm excited about that, so that eventually within the next 18 to 24 months I could see the St. Andrew's Anglican Primary School having their new home back in the Grenville location.
All right. And certainly you, the parents, teachers, and so forth, will be certainly happy for that.
Oh, yes. I mean, despite the challenges, I was able to have a meeting with the parents close to the end of the year, just to chat their way forward in the current situation. You remember the school was burnt, and so to share with them what the plans were, what the directions were. And probably I can say here, unfortunately, we have not been able to reopen the Anglican School Grenville yet, because we are pursuing vigorously the retrofitting of the Telescope Multipurpose Center. We've had some setbacks, unfortunately, to that, because the plan was clear, and initially we were going to have that done within a couple of weeks, so that by November they could have been back in the school. But we had some major setbacks that were out of our control within education.
Okay.
And after due process, the conclusion remained that that was still the best option, and so we've engaged a contractor and we are vigorously pursuing. So I passed there even yesterday, and they're working day and night to see us get back there in the shortest space of time. And we did meet with the parents and the school community, so I think they're in a position in the know, and they understand the challenge that we face. And I imagine they're prepared to work with us, and the school, I believe, will do the best they can, as they've been doing all along, to minimize the loss of instructional time and to meet with them virtually as far as they can. Yeah, and I could imagine somebody saying, well, the Progress Park option, there are many reasons why it's still not the best option. I think that area was an area that was plagued with lots of challenges. The flooding, because I had made several visits to the school before. They complained about the flooding, the heat, the intrusion, and to go back there means that with the sporting season, there are going to be so many interruptions. Even with the few weeks they were there, people started coming to train, and the disruption. So it's not something that you can't sustain over any lengthy period of time. So we're pushing with that, and there are other schools too that are at different stages. The Florida government, the St. Giles Anglican. Some of those are the concept design stages and all of that.
All right. Let's talk about sports. We know, what it looks like for the sporting season. We know, of course, considering the renovation due to take place for the National Stadium, specific for, National Primary School sports and the intercol games. How are we looking for sports for 2024?
Well, I'm not worried that we won't be able to have the sports. I think the upgrades are important, and the opportunity cost of improvement is always probably some little displacement, some little inconvenience. But we have hosted, and that's one of the reasons we can't have Anglican School at Progress Park. We have hosted the intercol games at Progress Park before.
Yes.
We've had major international games there. And the facility is an excellent facility that the plans are to upgrade even light to be able to facilitate some of those the increased activity that you will have there with the decommissioning of the if I should put it that way, of the National Stadium to facilitate the upgrade. So I'm confident that we'll still be able to get the sporting season in. I can't tell you that I have the exact plan. I probably didn't get that from the Department of Sports before I came to this program, but I'm confident all of those will work out and work out well.
All right. Let's talk about the 50th anniversary of independence. What are some of the activity the ministry is leading, is taking the lead in line for coming up for the 50th anniversary of independence?
Well, we're working closely with the celebrations committee. I know they had the launch of the mobile museum, which is going to be working along with them to have that brought to different schools at different times, which I think is an excellent idea.
Yes. I really like that initiative a whole lot.
You bring the history and you bring those things to the students and make history alive, and that comes well on the background of the history that we launched, the Grenadian history that we launched last year in our schools, the book produced by Dr. Dow, and I think it augurs well for persons becoming more nationalistic. But we have encouraged, for instance, the national theme song is going to be played in all schools on assembly mornings, because I believe the themes and the captivation that the spirit of that song brings is something that I want all our students to leave this 50th anniversary. Many will not see another 50 years of the nation celebration. I'm not sure that God will be kind enough to me to give me another 50 years. So this is something that we want to make sure students capitalize on. They've been encouraged to have their own local and school activities to mark and get involved in the various parish activities that will happen throughout the year. And so a lot of those things are happening at the school level.
Okay, let's move on. A question I want to ask, as you mentioned it, and it just tickled my mind just a bit, with the introduction of local history in schools, and that's been in progress right now. We have also heard issues being challenged by the former minister, who stated that it was a product of the former administration, simply completed by your administration. How are you about to respond to that?
Well, I don't know that. That was not in the transition notes that I got. Right? The transition notes that the permanent secretary presented had nothing to that end. You see, if you want to lay claim to something, you have to show what's the tangible proof. So it was not in the transition notes, like several other things that we could probably point to. But what I know, when I got in, and Dr. Dow had a meeting, on the very first meeting, it was clear in my head that this is something that we want to see, we will support, and we gave full endorsement. They needed endorsement from the Ministry of Education to proceed. And there was no such endorsement before. To the extent I had to sign a letter, and probably I could go and find a copy of it, saying to the publishers that we, the Ministry of Education, is prepared to collaborate with to see the history.
So, for the endorsements and so forth.
Yes, and we had that sent. And then further, we engaged our curriculum officers to have them review it, to review the material. So some of the names that I heard being called are curriculum officers within our ministry, but we engaged them and had them do the review, and they were satisfied that it was leveled properly and the review was done. So we went ahead with it. I don't know about what was in train before. I didn't hear anything of that before.
All right.
From any other.
All right. Now, the GUT has also consistently raised the issue of regularization for several teachers in terms with regularization under the land administration, but they have been complaining. I've had the of course the president of the GUT here, and he's also been complaining about the major issues. That's of course any updates in terms of the regularization process and so forth. Any updates on that you're willing to share with our listeners this morning?
Well, I mean, it's probably a little unfortunate that will be a major matter of complaint, because more than any time before, I think there's a clear pathway towards regularization of officers. And in fact, even as we speak, only within the last few months, probably between October and November, about 111 teachers were recommended, given some selected criteria, for formal regularization. But the regularization of teachers is an ongoing process.
Right.
And even then, we have to remember that many of the teachers in the system, they're plagued by a number of the same challenges that the regularization framework seeks to address. So you have teachers who are filling in for somebody who's acting somewhere, and you can't appoint them because you can't appoint somebody to fill a position that somebody officially holds, and you can't cut them out because they're still acting. So unless some of these other positions are treated with, then you don't open up all of the positions, and you can't just say they're teachers, so you just hire everybody and make them permanent, because you have certain ceilings, you have certain numbers. All of that is part of the Fiscal Resilience Act and responsibility. There's a certain ceiling that you shouldn't go over.
Right.
So you have to bear the numbers in mind, and you have to work with formalizing the appointments of persons who are acting over a certain number of years. And that's what the regularization framework sets out to do in the first instance. And once those are freed up, it opens up a lot more spaces to regularize a lot more of these persons. But we have been regularizing. The 111 will tell you that. And there's another
question that fits into this: the relationship between your ministry and the Grenada Union of Teachers. I have of course the president being here, and he's saying that it's been trying to get a meeting and was not able to. And how's the relationship with the GUT with your ministry?
Well, I have a great relationship with the union.
Yes.
I don't know what the president of the union is referring to, because I've always attempted to be in good touch with the union. We have scheduled monthly meetings. Now, they don't come off as often as we want them to, because sometimes the schedules, either the president is unavailable. There was once when the president was unavailable, so we had to move the time. There was another time when that unavailability landed us in a vacation period, and I'm mindful not to make demands or try to ask people to come out for meeting on vacation time, because I know I've been an educator, so I understand. I don't want to hear, it's on a vacation and you're calling us out to meetings. So I avoided that, and then very early in the October we had a meeting. So we've had a number of meetings on most of the significant activities that have happened. We've involved the unions. The Anglican issue with the fire, we were in touch with them. We invited them to the consultations. In some cases, they haven't showed up.
Okay.
But we've invited them. So I don't know that there is an issue. We don't have an issue with the Grenada Union of Teachers. In fact, they are our collaborators. They are our partners. One of the things I'll tell you, I've heard some statements that I'm very disappointed with.
Yeah.
Because when, for instance, we took the position not to publish CPEA results, I heard all sorts of talks about we didn't consult the union and how we could do that. And I'm saying, but this is a routine, almost administrative position. We work as minister. I am obligated to administrate the affairs of education in keeping with the Education Act. And if we take positions within the Education Act that we are satisfied are legal and they don't have any implication for the hours, the time, or the duties of teachers, was there really a need to seek permission, probably, or no, I'm saying consultation is always good. So it's nothing wrong if we say, well, we're doing this, so be aware. But if for some reason, I think time was the issue, the timeliness of the announcement and all of that didn't allow for that. But you heard there was no consultation, and I'm wondering, well, is there really a need to consult to enact the Education Act? I didn't know that part required that. So sometimes I think there's a blurring of what the responsibilities of the union could be. But I think it's a work in progress that we just need to continue to talk about to make sure that we're all on the same page for the same reason.
Well, so we drew for a break, but I have one question I want to get in because I've seen my phones are going in case you've seen that too. And I guess there are listeners or viewers over there who may want to ask you a question or two. Another question that's been of concern over maybe sometime last year in 2023. What's going to be the significant change in the curriculum for last year? And in terms of, we've been hearing about, the back and forth about the LGBTQ in schools and you state that while it is not there and we cannot avoid it, it will come. You remember, I think I've definitely heard you mention that. What are we looking at this year in regard to that particular issues and others?
Okay, so I'll talk about the LGBTQ after, but let me talk more importantly about some of the changes in the curriculum.
Yes.
For one, the TVET offerings. 2, we reintroduced Spanish as a second language in some of the primary schools, and we even had the budget allows for the hiring of selected staff to facilitate that.
Yes. Because
we believe that in a tourist-driven society as ours, the earlier we expose persons to a second language, the more likely they will become bilingual, and that will support our tourism product here. I mean, I speak French as well, so I always have a keen interest in persons acquiring a second language. So that is one thing that we're doing, but even in the arts, the creative arts, we've gotten a couple of teachers in the creative and performing arts to assist with the program and incorporating the arts in regular education strategy. So that's some of the things there, along with the history. So these things are good curriculum things. But let's talk about there has been absolutely no change.
All right.
So I reiterate, all the scare and the talk about introducing a new LGBT curriculum, well, I mean, introducing a new curriculum that focuses and features LGBTQ is not something that we have done. It's not something that I know exists or is happening. Now, for one, the document that there is a technical guidance on comprehensive sex education that's been around since 2009, or that the former administration signed on to in 2018, right? And training started to expose people to that. But it's a comprehensive sex education document. Now, we understand that most international agencies, they have their agendas, they have the underpinnings that support what they do, and it would be probably foolhardy of us to pretend that there may not be. When you get aid from any particular country, there's probably always some way they're looking for something
in return. I understand.
Right. So let's not be naive about that. Now, so that document was signed, and teachers started to be trained in that since then, 2018, 2019. And they were exposed to that, and there was a big hullabaloo. And I remember one religious leader coming to me, and I said, listen, at the end of the day, we are Grenadians. There are values that we work with. There are values, and we are the ones who are going to operationalize whatever. And we have the mandate to determine what is taught, how it's taught, if it's taught. Nobody could stay and sign. That's why we are sovereign state. Nobody could stay wherever and tell me or tell you, you have to teach this, and at the end of the day, you're the teacher in the classroom. We have syllabuses. If it was so, probably by the whims and fancies of one or two people, everybody will be Christianized just like that. But it just doesn't work like that, you see? Yeah. So I think people have just become a bit hypersensitive to the topic, and I think people have had an aversion about the whole of sexuality. not just LGBTQ. Because if you ask somebody some pointed questions about their own sexuality, they become uncomfortable. And it doesn't have to go down any skewed line, because we come from a history where persons have always had an aversion to just merely talk about sexuality, human sexuality, to the point that we grew up not even being able to call the names of our private parts in their proper names, because we had this aversion. And you had probably Christian people who in our society we feel are legitimately entitled to sexual involvement. They're afraid to talk about sex. They're afraid to talk about sexual involvement. They feel everything inside that Christian experience must be missionary. There are a lot of things going on in the psyche of people relating to sexuality, which I think are overflowing in this matter that we need to examine.
Certainly get your point there, Minister. Certainly get your point. Let's entertain a caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Telesford. Greetings and greetings to your guests. This one is Andrews or Andrew?
Andrew.
This one doesn't have an S. Hallelujah. The name is Rollo, common citizen. I laud and applaud your administration for undertaking one of the major tasks that you propose to introduce, that of educating our youth to 18. In other words, if a child is a child until 18, he or she has to be under the care of the state, and it's the duty of the state to inculcate what is necessary so that this child, boy or girl, prepare themselves for the other step in life, working with merit, qualified, suitably educated and prepared so that they can make the other step in life to work for themselves and by extension the state. So I laud and applaud you. That is a socialist principle, you know that? Don't tell me that you're all following social. No, but let's go on to the second part, sir. The other one is a matter of concern. I just seek some clarity here. Let us begin this way. We know there are three forms or species or whatever we wish to call them of schools in Grenada. One state-run schools, two denominational schools, three private schools. Now, we know that private schools, correct me if I'm wrong too, private assets, and they pay their teachers. But as it relates to denominational schools, I cannot say that I know, and again I'm seeking clarity, that I know of any church that built a school in Grenada. Are we continuing to build schools and hand it over to church organizations to run? And this is where I'm seeking clarity. And the question is as follows. Can you certify or deny that the assets of the so-called denominational schools are on the books of the state, the account ledgers of the state, or of the churches? I hope my question is understood. Am I clear, sir?
Yes, you are very clear, sir.
Thank you very much and have a nice day, will you?
Thank you, sir.
Right, so thank you, sir. Indeed, I think you have asked a question that's a very profound question. I've heard several discussions to that end, and my own opinions exist on the matter too. But to answer your question more pointedly, I don't know that the assets of denominational schools reflect on the books of the state. I don't know that. But those are long-standing issues, and I think because of the pervasive interest demonstrated by the denominational organizations in education over the years, treating with those matters become a matter that is that needs to be very carefully spoken to and treated with. But your concerns are heard, and I can't say that I know that the assets are on the state's books.
All right. We do have another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Good morning, Brian. Good morning to Mr. Andrew. Mr. Andrew, that school in Progress Park have been broken into a number of times. Then the bandit touched it afire, I want to believe. Now that preschool close to that school at the bandit bun. in December alone, have been broken into 3 times. I mean, it's not your fault, but I'm saying that what kind of police force we have in Glenwood? Let's imagine a place has been broken into 3 times. A preschool where little babies go, Somebody just break it and steal all the goods in there and just go and just do what they want. And it's like, no, nobody care about that. Yeah, I find that it's very unsettling on my chest. You have kids that go back there and teachers are leaving, maybe they don't know how to operate. Thirdly, yesterday I heard a conversation among some kids, and I was kind of wondering what's going on. And they were talking about teachers having relationship with children in the school. So I said, people know about that? And they're like, yeah, everyone in school know about that. And like, nothing at all. That's like nothing at all. Teachers have relationship with kids in the school. That's normal. I don't know how that could be normal. We give men 20 and 30 years in jail, and we have teachers, you have the fox inside the hen, inside the coop. I mean, this is crazy in Grenada. We need to stop. We need to stand for that. Have a nice day, brother.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution this morning. Any response to the question?
So I'll start with the last one. In no way does the ministry tolerate or condone relationships between teachers and students, or personal relationships. Let me clarify. In fact, I can tell you, while I served as the chief education officer, sadly, I had to dismiss one young man who, after due investigation, was found to be exchanging highly personalized content with an underage, with a student in a primary school. And we went through the process through PSC to have him terminated, because that's not something I tolerate personally, not as a father, not as a chief education officer, not as a minister for education. So there's no way that we tolerate this. And if there's any truth to what's being said, that needs to be brought to the attention of the Ministry of Education, be it in writing, or you come bring a conversation, preferably in writing, because we don't want to act on hearsay and they say, because even what you've said here is not enough for me to take action or for any education official to take action. But I guarantee you, if there's a letter coming in saying student ABC, or in this particular school, teacher so-and-so, it is something that we will deal with very firmly. In terms of the security in schools, we continue to work on that, and we're currently doing an assessment of the schools that need adjustment for security purposes to work along with the Ministry of National Security, because that's where security contracts reside at the point. But there's still a bigger problem in that when we can look at our preschools and vandalize it, it begs the question, what are we thinking? What are we thinking when we could vandalize the resources that's supposed to put our 4- and 5-year-olds in a good stead? It bothers me. And so that's a national conversation we need to have along community lines, along parent lines, along family lines, because we are the only losers when that happens.
All right. There's a question from someone. Before I entertain another caller, I just have to use up the time for questions in this segment. There's a question from someone via the Facebook page. They say, Mr. Minister, I want to bring to your attention the McDonald College, where we heard of the news of asking for funds for repairs of the school. As also the priests walking around Grenada to accumulate funds. Can you tell us... Tell me what the Ministry of Education is responsible for fixing such an institution. They're asking if the Ministry of Education is responsible for fixing that institution, in where we have they've been asking for funds and so forth. Is it the ministry's responsibility?
Well, I am not aware of what the person is talking about, so I can't speak to that intelligently.
All right.
However, what I can say, it's not uncommon that schools can take initiative.
All right.
If a school feels they want to do some particular thing, some particular project, it's not uncommon that a school can develop a drive somewhere to do that. However, it's important that the ministry becomes aware, because here I am having to defend something that probably I am not aware of at this point.
No knowledge of it.
And it's possible that the chief education officer and probably the PS and some of the other persons are aware.
So is it that information is not trickled down for some point?
No, I'm not sure. It's possible that they could be doing something that's not as significant an infrastructural overhaul, because things that are important overhauls infrastructurally, the ministry is normally aware. In fact, the ministry has a school inspection team that goes out with NADMA every year, and in fact they've already started talking about that, because it needs to happen early in the year to facilitate repairs and maintenance, and I spoke a little bit earlier about the maintenance schedule that we have. So usually the ministry will be responsible, but for minor stuff we anticipate that the school principal will take the lead and take the initiative to maintain stuff. So I don't know that what is being referred to, but the ministry is usually responsible for major works and overhauls at the schools, but schools are not debarred from using initiative to...
if there's minor repairs that they think they can handle on their own, understandably so. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning, you're welcome.
Yes, good morning. Earlier, your guest, I'm not sure if it was your guest or a caller, spoke about students having too much pride to ask for help. The other side of that is that there are teachers who laugh at them. And we have to make sure that we have sensitive, responsible teachers in the system. Because if they ridicule the child, if they make them feel bad because they don't understand or they need help, then that child would not have the confidence to approach teachers and say, look, I need help. So we need to talk about the educators, the people that are responsible for the children, to make sure that they are not the ones that are barring children and deterring them from coming to help, because some of these teachers, Imani, whatever they are, they trained know that they are nurturers and they are part of bringing the children out that need help, encouraging them and not ridiculing the ones who need help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much for your...
I think that point is well received, because we recognize that, and the caller is quite correct. Sometimes you have those elements of discouragement from levels where you don't expect them. But in our department, I think we've even had some training with cooks and persons to ensure that they understand the supportive and nurturing nature of this program. So taking well, caller, and we'll continue to do that.
All right, let's entertain another caller. We still may have to ask for another 2 minutes before we wrap. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Minister. There's a question that I want to ask that I don't think I heard you pronounce on it, and that is the public library. What is the state of it? This is something dear to my heart. Thank you.
Right, well,
thank you, caller.
So the public library, we did do a walkthrough earlier in the year, and we have since gotten the permission of the cabinet to contract the former director of library services, together with some other library experienced individuals, to sift through the material at the library to remove and secure the material that are archivable, so that they are since being transported to the stadium to be digitalized. That's part of the process. So once that's done and completed, and the material, they're quite old and in some cases brittle, so a lot of extreme care needs to be taken. So that's ongoing, the digitalization. So we are happy with that, and we've been able to finance that from an education point of view. The other infrastructural part and the designs, actually it comes under the Grenada Resilience Infrastructure Project, the GRIP project, which is the same project that covers the work for some of the buildings in St. George and the Fort George, and those. So that's an ongoing project, and the rest of it will be financed through that project. So it's not something that's going to be financed totally under education, but we have to date contributed to engaging the person to have the material, the archivable material, secured and transferred to DD.
Okay. I have one final question I want to ask Minister. It's been a question that has brewed through my mind. We heard the thoughts about the pending cabinet reshuffle.
Yes,
we heard about that. Do you feel comfortable that you have done all that you have done in your ministry, and you feel comfortable in terms of if you were getting a new appointment?
I am very much open to the to the workings of the chair of cabinet.
Yeah,
I'm a team player. Wherever I am planted, I intend to grow and bloom. And if by the wisdom of the Prime Minister he feels he wants to have me placed in any other area of his cabinet, I'll be happy to serve and do my best. That's all I commit to doing. Right. My best wherever I'm put. I like education. I love education, but it's not about where you love. I mean, it's about the bigger picture, and he sits with the responsibility for that. So I'll be going to work anyway.
Of course, Mr. Andrew, I want to thank you so much for being with us this morning. It's a pleasure having you. A great conversation we had this morning. Thanks for all the information, most of the clarification you gave also. Of course, I certainly hope it's welcome by our listeners and viewers this morning. Any closing comment before we take a wrap this morning?
Well, I just want to encourage the entire nation to make the best of all of the opportunities. I didn't get to talk much about the budget and the measures in the budget. Sometimes I think people are pointed in directions that they miss some key things. I know there were lots of cost reduction measures, for instance, in the last budget, which are replicated in this budget, that persons, if they tap into and recognize, they would see the definite benefits that exist. So we will be deliberate about making sure persons are aware about those. I personally will take responsibility for that where I can. But I want to encourage people. There are a lot of good things up and about happening. The opportunities for scholarship, I want to remind persons, let me say that. I want to remind persons that there is a charter with the St. George's University where any Grenadian gets 90% off the cost of tuition for studies pursued there. So persons in the outer parishes, don't just sit by and wonder what you could do. Take the opportunity with only 10% to worry about, and that 10% can be applied for through the Ministry of Education. And there's also the economic cost that we have with the St. George's University, with the universities of the West Indies, the regional campuses in St. Augustine, Trinidad, Cayville, Barbados, and Mona, Jamaica, where you get 80% off from studies there, for tuition. And we are happy too that this administration was able to remove the barrier for persons wanting to do law and medicine in those universities, so that everybody has the access to get economic costs at those universities. We've been having stronger uptake, and so I encourage people, particularly those of you in the outer parishes, because these benefits tend to stay a lot more concentrated to St. George's.
Yes.
But I want to appeal to people from St. John, St. Patrick, St. Andrew, the outer parishes, St. David, St. Mark, to make use of these opportunities and upgrade yourself, because education is indeed the most significant tool for transforming our lives and transforming our fortunes and our future.
Well, once again, Mr. David, Andrew, I want to thank you so much for being with us this morning. As I mentioned before, it's a pleasure having you on the show. It would be first or last, right?
No,
we having you back again.
Yes.
Because there's so much that we could discuss. We just grazed the topic, if I could say that this morning. Certainly we're glad to have you back once again. Best wishes, sir, once again, and all the best for the rest of the day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Same to you and all the listeners.
Hey, folks, that's how we take a wrap for today's program, Up to the Point, and thank all who viewed and listened with us this morning. Have a great day, and join us again for another edition here on Classic Radio GBN TV. That's why we say goodbye.